the readers from the 1867 edition and distribute these complete sets at his own expense to schools all across the United States. Even today, McGuffey's readers sell 20, 30,000 sets, and they're passed down, and they do a lot of teaching and tutoring. What makes them so good? They go to the fundamentals of reading, writing, and arithmetic. They were used way back, around the time of the Civil War, and then after that, just a rough time frame. And they work. You read good, you write good, you have good arithmetic. There's not a lot of study about watching whales or worried about the environment and these things. You take care of business and you learn something. Also, McGuffey's readers had a spiritual component. On occasion, kids were taught to say their prayers or to give thanks or to be square. I'm going to go ahead and read a couple of McGuffey's readers' stories out of these McGuffey readers. Now, we're not going to do any math. We're not going to do much of this stuff, but they would actually have the kids take a piece of slate, they called it, and a small piece of chalk, and that was what they did. They wrote on that chalk during these time between stories being read to them and doing their mathematics. It sounds primitive, and it was, but it worked real well. First up, our first story out of an original McGuffey's reader. Waste not, want not. Mr. Jones asked two boys. He says, "Boys, if you don't have anything to do, I want you to unpack these parcels for me." Now, the two parcels were exactly alike. Both of them were well tied up with good whipcord. Ben took his parcel to the table and began to examine the knot and then to untie it. John took the other parcel and tried first at one corner, then at the other to pull off the string, but the cord had been too well secured and it only ended up drawing the knots tighter. John said, "I wish these people would not tie up their parcels so tightly as if they were never to be undone. Why, Ben, how did you get yours undone? What's in your parcel? I wonder what's in mine. I wish I could get the string off. I'm going to cut it." Ben, "No, don't cut it, John. Look what a nice cord this is. And yours is the same. It'd be a pity to cut that cord, John." "Oh, what's a little bit of pack thread?" Ben says, "It's whipcord, John. It's not pack thread. You can use it." "Well, whipcord then. Just a piece of whipcord. You can get it for a couple, 2 or 3 cents. Anyway, I'm going to get my knife." So he took out his knife and cut it in several places. Mr. Jones came back and said, "Well, my boys, have you undone the parcels for me?" And John said, "Yes, sir. Here's the parcel." And Ben, of course, here's the parcel, and he was staring at the cut string. "Anyway, you may keep the string," said Mr. Jones. Ben said, "Thank you. What excellent whipcord it is. And you, John, may keep your string, too, if it will be any of use to you." John says, "It won't be any of use to me, Mr. Jones. I cut it." "Well, I'm afraid it won't be any use to you." Anyway, a few weeks later, Mr. Jones gave each of his sons a new top. Now, how is this, Ben? These tops have no strings, they were talking to each other about. Then, what did Ben say? "I have a string that'll do very well for me." And he pulled out a string from his pocket. Poor old John. "Why, if that's not the whipcord, I wish I'd saved mine." A few days afterwards, there was a shooting match with bows and arrows among the lads. The prize was a fine bow and arrow to be given to the best marksman. "Come, come," said Master Sharp. "I am within 1 inch of the mark. I should like to see who can do better." John drew his bow and shot. The arrow struck within 1/4 of an inch of Master Sharp's. "Shoot away, boys. Go ahead," said Sharp, "but you must understand the rules. We settled them before you came. You are to have 3 shots with your own arrows. Nobody is to borrow or lend, so shoot away." John seized his second arrow. "If I have any luck," he said, but just as he pronounced the word luck, the string broke and the arrow fell from his hands. Master Sharp, "There, it's all over with you." Ben, "Here's my bow for him. He's welcome to use it." Mr. Sharp, No, that's not fair. Didn't you hear the rules? There's no lending." It was now Ben's turn to make his trial. His first arrow missed the mark. The second was exactly as near as John's first before venturing the last arrow. Ben very prudently examined the string of his bow, and as he tried to pull it with all his strength, the bowstring snapped. Master Sharp clapped his hands and danced for joy, but his dancing suddenly ceased when careful Ben drew out of his pocket an excellent piece of cord and began to tie it to the bow. "That's the everlasting whipcord, I declare." cried John. Yes, said Ben. I put it in my pocket today because I thought I might want it. Ben's last arrow won the prize, and when the bow and arrows were handed to him, John said, How valuable that whipcord has been to you, Ben. I'll take care, and I won't waste things like that anymore. Okay, so that was an actual McGuffey's Reader story, 200 years old. I mean, it's some time ago. Now, they were required to have to read through a little poem, which was part of the deal. The little poem had to be read, and then they went over and did another story. I'll read the poem, and this is the way they wrote back then. Two girls I know, Jeanette and Jo, and one is always moping. The other lassie, come what may, is ever bravely hoping. Beauty of face and girlish grace are theirs for joy or sorrow. Jeanette takes brightly every day, and Jo dreads each tomorrow. One early morn they watched the dawn. I saw them stand together. Their whole day's sport was very plain, depending on the weather. "'Twill storm," cried Jo. Jeanette spoke low. "Yes, but it'll soon be over." And as she spoke, the sudden shower came beating down the clover. "I told you so," cried angry Jo. "It's always a-raining," then hid her face in dire despair, lamenting and complaining. But sweet Jeanette, quiet, hopeful yet, I tell it to her honor, looked up and waited till the sun came streaming down upon her. The broken clouds sailed off in crowds across a sea of glory. Jeanette and Jo ran laughing in, which ends this simple story. Okay, folks, that's what the kids did. Then they took out their, the chalk and went with it. Well, that's it for now. I'm going to go ahead and we're kind of gone over 20 minutes here, and they want these things between 15 and 20 minutes for whatever reason. But what we're going to do here, as we continue to bring these prison news broadcasts to you, it's going to give you a look at the underbelly of the criminal justice system, the privatization of prisons, jails, even penitentiaries perhaps in the future. What's really going on? Is there an ethical problem with law enforcement, correctional officers, judges, and our juries even to blame? How many of these pastors are bad, have a mean streak in them? And how many of these pastors are good, that do a good thing to help their community? So you're going to get it here at Prison News. Basically, either every morning at 6 o'clock, you're going to have a Prison News, or every once a week, depending on what's going on out there. Want to wish you well, and want to also remind you to say your prayers. And don't forget this part about being born again and Jesus being Lord. It's true. Prison's mentioned a whole lot in the Bible. Criminals are mentioned a lot in the Bible. Guys going and doing time is a lot in the Bible. And over and over again, it teaches you there is such a thing as inmates or inmate families or things like that. They can turn it around. They can get their discipline. They can do what we call the born-again experience, place their faith in Christ, start saying their prayers, reading their Bible, maybe even reading a McGuffey's Reader. These are great for inmates, McGuffey's Readers. But the main thing is the shed work of Christ on the cross. You've heard it. The preachers talk about it, whether it's a TV evangelist asking for money. By the way, you're never asked for anything here. Or even it's a missionary going to another place where literally is cannibalism to this day. You probably know that if you've done any research on Google. There are cannibals to this day, and they're not all just in Africa. But Jesus talked about it. He said, believe in me when I'm on that cross. Believe what I've done for you. And put your trust, your faith over here, not over there. He's now in heaven. He'll be coming back again. And you might want to give that some thought. Take care. God bless all of you. And let's go ahead and ring that prison bell right now.